maintenance tracking.
There used to be a talk time.
My name is Daniel Hansen. I started off my career at Utah Valley University. I've been there for about 10 years. I started doing as a part-time PM, changing filters, belts, that type of stuff. And I moved up to being the lead HVAC controls programmer. By the time I left, I went up to Salt Lake Community College, been there for about 3 years. Started off as the heat plant manager, and now I'm their director of plant operations and maintenance. Got my associate's degree from UVU in HVAC, and my bachelor's in IT from UVU. I'm a member of ASHRAE, AEE, and VOC, and a few other things. Inventory control, we'll start with that. Talk about what is inventory, how it tiers from different types of inventory, such as equipment to spare parts, that type of stuff. Paper towels, grease, everything you think of to keep track of. We'll talk about why you can control it, know what you have, know what you need, and know where it's used. And talk about whether it's worth it, which is dependent on your application, what you want to keep track of, why you want to keep track of it. So I was going to ask you all up front, what kind of facilities you guys have? Can you give me an example? Like, you guys are probably familiar with Salt Lake Community College, just a higher education. We have in-house facilities, HVAC, plumbing, carpenters, anything you think of, motor pool. Are you guys all similar in that regard? Yeah. Jails? anything abnormal that's not typical in facilities? Do any of you do inventory control? You keep track of stuff, and you just go to the store, buy it, go put it in, do any of that stuff? Yes? A little bit? Okay. We keep track, we're mandated from DFCM to keep track of certain items, keep track of our maintenance reports, keep track of all that stuff. You guys don't have that same jurisdiction responsibilities, right? No? Okay. We're lucky in that regard. We spend a lot of time doing paperwork. So many different types of inventory. We do chillers, fans, tape, toilet paper, all sorts of things. There are items that you can own or stock on hand that can be used on demand without having to run to the store to purchase them. It's also equipment that you own, need to be tracked for maintenance and budgetary purposes. As you guys are members of USIP, you guys have damaged buildings, things like that. How do you guys know what was in your building when it got damaged? If you don't keep track of it, how are you going to give them an idea of what your replacement cost is? So it might be something worthwhile to start keeping an inventory of your buildings for insurance purposes alone, so you get reimbursed for everything in the buildings. We have a damaged room. I had a fire line break a few months ago in our library and one of their storage rooms in the back, so you can imagine the quantity of items in that room. Some of it got damaged. Most of it was recognizable, but it was easy to understand what it was. But if they didn't have an inventory list, they would never be able to get anything replaced because they wouldn't know what was in there. So they could say, well, I think we had 3 of these books or 2 of these books, but they don't know without a tracking of an inventory. So it helps out in those damaged situations. Why would you control it? So you can track items purchased and where they're used. You can track costs spent for each area. You can reduce redundant purchases and overhead. So we're now required to track our travel time on all of our work orders. Every time we have a job on any of our buildings and my personnel has to go out and repair it, we have to log all the materials spent on the job. If they have to go to the store to pick it up and come back, we have to log that time for travel going to and from the store and keep a record of it. And then I can go back and look at all the jobs and say, hey, we're spending a lot of time traveling to this store or that store, and we're getting a lot of these parts at those stores. So it'd be more worthwhile for us to buy a stock of it, stick it in our warehouse, and then the employee can go to the warehouse on the campus instead of running to the store multiple times to pick up the same item. It helps us keep the costs, tracking the costs spent in each area. So I can say this building or this air handler or this chiller costs us this much money to maintain it. I use that data as time goes on. Let's say I have a chiller that's 15 years old. I'm constantly replacing seals on it, other items that wear out. Is it worthwhile for me just to replace the entire chiller, or is it more worthwhile to keep maintaining it, depending on the level of service that I'm putting into it? And so I use that data to do equipment replacement, estimation, budgetary estimating for DFCM, say, hey, I want this much money in 2 years from now to replace this equipment that's a high dollar expense item. Kind of like I said, reduce your overhead. I go into my plumber's shop when I first started, and it looks like this. And I go, what do you have in here? And I don't know, we just buy a couple extra items every time we go to the store, we throw it up there. I'm like, okay, well, you have 5 or 6 of these sitting here. How often do you use this? Oh, those have been there for 10 years. I've moved them 6 times in the last 10 years, and we never use them. So why do you still have them? So I'm trying to get our shops. I got the HVAC department to look more like this. Plumbers is about half and half still, but they're slowly working on it. It's really hard. Like I said, they go to the store, they need a flush valve or something. They'll buy like 2 or 3 of them, and then we'll throw them on the shelf and forget they have them. And I have 7 campuses across the valley, 3 different shops, one at 3 of the main campuses, and nobody knows what the other person has. I have 3 sets of every tool you can think of at one at each campus, except for my high dollar, like I have a large jetter on a trailer, I got one of those. But my other campuses wants one now. I don't want to drive down to Jordan and pick it up and bring it back up to this campus. They're 7 miles away. It's like, I'm not going to buy those high dollar items, but I got augers and everything else, and every single campus has one. So. And we keep track of it. Anything over, I think it's $5,000, we have an inventory asset tag assigned to it that our, well, I don't know what department that is, inventory control department maintains those records, and every year I get audited. Do you have, here's a big spreadsheet, go through it, make sure everything's existing. I have to go and find every single inventory tag, make sure it's still there, hasn't been stolen, make sure it's still working, and then I put a cost associated to it, actual value cost of when we purchased it, and then prorated cost based off of its age for replacement purposes. And I get to keep track of that every year, and every department does that, so kind of helps limit redundant purchases. I guess I will this. We started using Granger for our belts inventory, so my HVAC department, Granger comes out and they tag and labeled all of our belts that we use, and we can pull in our Sprocket system a list of all the belts that we use on all of our air handlers, fan coils, anything associated with that equipment. And so they came in and they barcoded the whole wall for us, and they come and restock it. We tell them we want 3 of these items, 2 of these items, 6 of these items, and they come however I need them to, once a month, every other month, and if I run down on my inventory, they automatically replace it and send me the bill. And they do that for anything you want them to that's in their catalog, and they're on state contract, so it helps me with purchasing. Usually I'm required to, anything over $1,000, get 3 bids to buy anything. So with this, I don't have to deal with that because it's state contract. So other people do those same services. I'm not sure the other companies. I just do with Granger because it's easier financially for me. Quick response, save money with both gas, etc. when you buy things. Is it worth it? So why stop if you don't use it? Like I said, I'll go in there. My plumber said that item's worth a lot of money because I've moved it so much. The amount of time I've spent in moving it, my salary, it's a very expensive item. I surplused a lot of stuff when I first started here 3 years ago because, yeah, it's pretty bad. Stock too much so it can be stolen. That's another problem. If you have 40 rolls of electrical tape sitting on the shelf, pretty sure all your employees are going to have 4 or 5 at home within the next month. It's hard to keep track of large quantity items like that. Where do you store it all? Who keeps track of it? And is it outdated? So we're looking into buying or building a warehouse so that we can start keeping track, stocking and storing a lot of these items. Right now they're in individual shops, and my individual shops maintain the control of their areas. We don't really have theft problems, but it's nice to know what's there. We'll buy electrical tape, electricians buy electrical tape. Why have 2 different stocks of it when you can have one and they can share that item? We're going to have our shipping and receiving department, surplus department, kind of keep track of it all for us through this Sprocket system. This is a screenshot of Sprocket that we use to do it. This is, I believe it's, these are paper towels, so boxes of paper towels that our custodial use. And we have locations of where they're all stored on each individual building, how many per case, so there's 10 rolls, I think, per case. And our custodial department actually tracks this stuff. So we buy it, they take it, they stick it in here, they go into each of these areas, increase the quantity in those areas, and as the departments use it, they fill out their work order, restocked paper towels in this bathroom, automatically deducts it from this inventory, And when it gets down to a certain level, it automatically tells us that we can reorder that same item so we don't run out. And we know, like, if the building does burn down, I can go and say, okay, we have this many of these items, that many of this item, here's all the equipment of the building, here's their ages, it's all there already, and it's a lot less headache when there's a disaster, so. Like I said, here's Sprocket. It's our work order / inventory control / project management tracker. We pay a lot of money for it. We can, like I said, it tracks equipment, inventory, work orders, preventive maintenance, PMs, projects. It associates cost, time, personnel to equipment or locations. So like I said, we can track fans, motors, pumps, chillers, doors, paper towels, drywalls. So it's this list here. This is different types of equipment that we have in there. So we have air dryers, doors, distribution panels, expansion joints. We track not everything yet, but we're getting there. So it's probably, if you look at the overall system, we're probably about 30% implemented on tracking every piece of equipment. So what I'm doing is a software program called Onuma that we're going to be purchasing hopefully in the next couple months, that I can go through using Sprocket and that software that will associate every single room as a location item. And I'll walk in that room with Onuma and I can pull up everything in that room. So I'll pull up what type of walls in there, what type of ceilings in there, what type of lights are in there, light switches, floor coverings, everything. It will tell me the age, when it was installed, what type it is, how many there are, and it will all be listed there so I can run a report on it and say, okay, I want to know all the carpet in this campus that's over 10 years old. Give me a report, boom, it sends back the square footage of all that type of carpet on any building that I want, and then I can say, hey, DFCM, I need this cost to replace all this carpet before it wears out and looks like crap, and move forward like that. So, outlets, electrical outlets, they have lifespans on them. You know, after, I don't know, years, 20 years or something, they'll start wearing out. I don't know. It's easier to project and plan ahead to replace them than it is to wait for them to start failing around and causing fire hazards and other issues. So, cost association. So when my employees get a work order, they go in and they fill out their time, they add their maintenance costs, items they use to do the repair, and they put it all in Sprocket, and then I can run this report and get the details. So I can look in here, say here's the work order, it's closed, here's the labor, they put 1 hour in here. Estimated was 1 hour, it actually took 3 hours. Then I have an associated labor cost to that. They didn't have any materials on this application. And they can also charge assets. So let's say they had to use a fan to dry the carpet on a spill that somebody did. They can log that cost to the assets there, and then we turn around and we build a department for whatever we had to do in that area. And then the state's actually requiring. They have a House bill right now that's probably going to pass that requires us to calculate the cost spent on every building individually for everybody that's associated with that building. So my custodial crew, they walk into this building, go and clean bathrooms for 3 hours, then they go to this bathroom in another building for 2 hours, then over here to this bathroom for 2 more hours. Well, I have to now track all those hours they spent individually by building so we can say the cost. Yes.
Is that only through DFCM?
I believe it's state-funded buildings. I don't know if it affects or it impacts your guys' area or not. I know it affects higher ed and MATCs, all those areas that are under the DFCM building board umbrella. Do you guys fall under that same umbrella?
We get some state funding for like health buildings.
Did you get O&M funding from them for your building? I think that's what it's focused on mostly. You guys are very lucky, you don't have to deal with that. I'm going to have to start associating my time to these buildings too. I'm like, how do you do that? I don't know. There's going to be a lot of paperwork. Luckily, this work order system allows us to do that because we can log our time by building. I've gone through, by the end of this year, I'll have all my buildings sub-metered for utilities, so gas, electric, steam, chilled water, everything like that. So I can now say, this building is costing me this much utilities to run. So that's a lot of the battle right there, but then the man hours, if he spends what time doing what where, that's going to be very fun to figure out how to track. Usually my custodial crew goes in and says, I spent 6 hours cleaning bathrooms today. But yes, they did, but yes, it should be tracked down to more by a building, then I'm paying them to work, not do paperwork, so it's like, where do I put the effort? And some staff are not very computer literate, so it's kind of like, how do you get them to log in to do their time, and they don't even know how to open the, browsers. I mean, a lot of fun challenges. So, inventory management, like I said, we track, this is mostly custodial that uses our inventory. We don't, my side, HVAC, plumbing, we don't use this a lot. We'll go when we get a work order, we'll fill out and add our materials to it, but we don't keep an on-hand inventory of what we do. They run to the store, buy 4 or 6 items, put them on their truck, put them in the shop, install one of them, put that cost on it. Then the other ones, by the time they go and use it, they don't associate it to the work order like they should, because by then they forgot how much it cost originally. So we're improving in this regard, but it would be really nice to have all that data set up and available for them to do. But here, like I said, you got available amounts, 11, total on hand, 11, reorder point, 6, minimum quantity, 0. So like I said, when it gets down, this number here gets down to that number there, they go ahead and reorder it. You don't have to have any on hand according to this, but the maximum they want is 18. So if you have them associated to a shelf in one of your storage room, you know how many maximum you can fit on that shelf. So you don't order 6 when you can only fit 4. So you can go in here and edit all this information based off of what your needs are. Do you guys, anyone have Sprocket? Similar to this? You guys have a software program similar to this? What's that?
I use Facility.
Facility View? I haven't heard about most of them. But anybody else use any inventory control? How do you guys keep track of everything? Are you guys spread across a big geographical area for your stuff? Are you by county, or how's it? Do you have one building you mostly focus on? You just run to the store and buy it as you need it, right? You just keep a few on hand. And do you associate those costs with any of your jobs you do? Maybe, no?
We have a state contracting that does come into effect on some of this stuff.
With Granger or different companies?
All kinds of yours.
So you use the state purchasing contracts that they have. We use the same things. Are you required to, or do you just do?
I'm not required to, no, it's recommended.
You all have your own purchasing department, or do you join that together too? Accounts payable, do you have all your own departments for that? Yes.
Usually they're called auditors.
There you go. We don't want them coming around. We want us to be in-house and be proactive about it, so the auditors don't come attack them.
Yeah, I'll chime in there. The Procurement Act, the state auditor's getting a little more finicky about that whole process. And the State Procurement Act, which is much more red tape than any of you want to go through to buy anything, is required. You're required to follow that unless your commission has passed an ordinance with your purchasing policy, with your procurement policy. So I'm in the process right now working with a lot of the commissioners and auditors and clerks to develop each county's purchasing policy that the county then will put in place by ordinance, so that you're not required to follow the state's procurement policy. So you want to get involved in that, because you guys make a lot of purchases, and the state contract's an easy out. That's a quick way to be able to get something purchased if it's available under the state contract, and not have to go through the bidding process and stuff. But for larger pieces of equipment, unless there's a sole source, and you can confirm that if there's a sole source, you might have to go through a bidding process to get a piece of a piece to repair a piece of equipment that could put that piece of equipment down for weeks. So we really want to make sure that you guys are involved as the counties develop their procurement practices, that we think about those things, and we have the procedure that you can, in those situations, that there's a shortcut through the process to be able to get that repair piece, that we can identify that as an emergency situation under the policy and get that taken care of quickly. The other thing that we've talked about with UAC is looking at developing countywide and statewide county purchasing contracts, because the state contract, the statutes allow for a additional contracts to be done other than what the state has on their own. And a lot of it, as I've been working with some of the counties, a lot of them have indicated, we wish that more of our local people, local businesses were on that purchasing contract, because we like to purchase local. So we've had some discussions at the UAC level with UAC about developing and adding, taking the state contract and adding to it with more of your local providers to have a countywide UAC purchasing contract with those people, so that it's quicker and easier for you to get it, and you're purchasing within your county. So again, touch base with the person in the county that oversees purchasing, because we want to make sure you guys are involved as we put that all together.
It's a pain to have to do 3 bids on any job over $1,000. All the other institutions sit around $3,000 to $5,000 for their minimum purchase. Mine's $1,000, so I had a 8-inch pump or pipe on our irrigation pump that had to be replaced, and I had to wait probably 3 weeks for me to get all the contractors in and look at it. All of them have to compare apples to apples, so you have to meet at the same time, then wait for their bids to come back, and then you can go and award the bid through a purchasing. So like I said, it takes about 3 weeks to go through this whole process, and it's something that costs $1,100, and it's really frustrating. So yeah, like I said, get involved when they make their policies, and tell them about just short dollar things. If it's an emergency, we have emergency repairs set up, so if I have a chiller that goes down in the middle of summer, I can call Carrier right in, take care of it. They cover me in that regard. But if I'm going to replace the chiller, I have to allow 3 companies to bid on that job. So if my entire campus is all Carrier, well, I can't sole source it just to Carrier, because all these other companies can give me the same product. So now I have to open it up to 1 or 2 more, and then I don't know what I'm getting until the bids come back, so, because we're low bid on everything. So.
How many programs that you got? Some of them free, or they all, you have to buy them all?
This one's expensive. I don't know what the cost was. There are some other ones that are free. I can't remember the names of them. And I have this, so I don't pay attention to the other ones. When I was at UVU, we used Magic, and there's this other one that our IT had in-house that they programmed in-house. And I liked that one because of the ability to manipulate it to your needs was really well. But I left around the same time they were implementing it finally, so I didn't get to work with it.
Which department do you think should implement this stuff? Should it be like the department, or should it be some other?
Our facilities department, we oversee it, and then it affects all of the facilities areas underneath. UVU, their IT, and their facilities department share the same database. So in your guys' application, it'd probably just be global for the whole group, depending on the size. Why have individual if you're not that large, or if you are large, you probably want your own, so you don't have to deal with committees and how to decide how to set it up. So,
The facility dude, you can buy modules, so it's set up, I got my maintenance, my work orders come in through that. You got utility track, you've got an inventory, and you buy modules that you want. It's set up for government entities. It's relatively inexpensive. I think we're paying roughly $2,000 a year for our program, but we got several modules.
do you program it yourself?
Yes, yeah, so you can manipulate it, they do implement stuff for you.
Well, some programs will even, when you run them low, automatically put that forward that you need to order more of that, and automatically put it on the list for you. So
Yeah, this will
these
email.
programs,
This actually will email who you buy from and say, hey, I need this many in order for you.
So we're not allowed to do that avenue, because if it's over 1,000, we gotta pre-approve it, multiple bid it. I think we buy through Waxy's on state contract, for in that situation, custodial could automatically order, like.
Are you on
Green or-
WISCA,
What's that?
the WISCA program? It's even better in state.
I have to run by the state one.
Yeah.
I'm stuck with what I have. Since all of you pay my salary through tax.
Well, WISCA is Western United States Alliance, and so our pricing gets a lot better. And there's only 2 companies on janitorial supplies, it's Waxy and Fastenal, carry that, WISCA.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions on inventory management?
You function as an internal service fund, where you say we know that they use so many rolls of toilet paper, do we they going to pay you for those, or is that just tracking the cost of whatever?
What do you pay me?
Well, internal service.
Oh, like the buildings pay me back?
Buildings pay you back for your time and service and materials and.
No. Depends on if it's an auxiliary service or not. So if it's our student center, students are funded by their own fees, then yes, they would. Right now, we just tell the student center, okay, here's an annual cost that we're going to charge you, and we're going to include all these services as part of that. But our Union Pacific leases a space from us. We set up, okay, we're going to bill you $20 a square foot, and all this is included in it. So that's usually how we handle it right now, because it's easier to bill them once a year than it is on every single instance. My softball field, there's a restroom there that the athletics department built. Instead of giving them a yearly cost, we just bill them per instance. So they call me to come to a meeting, I bill them for me being there. If my plumber's go in the building to clean their drains on their toilet, that happened last year, overflowed, and I bill them for it. So in those situations, yeah, they pay us per instance, and everything custodial-wise we put in there, we bill them. Our South City campus, we have a school district up there that uses our southern building, 3-story building up there. We bill everything we do in that building per instance. We usually save them up for every 3 or 4 months. We'll give them a stack at a time, say here's what you owe us, here's what you owe us. And they fight us a lot on it, and it's a pain in the butt. Up at the U, I believe every building is owned by its own budget department. So chemistry department, they have their own budget for their building. So they pay for all the services of that building out of that budget instead of coming out of the facilities budget. So they kind of split O&M up that way, up down there. UVU is the same way we are. There's one master O&M budget, and they cover everything except for the student center down there. They have their own custodial staff and event staff. And at Slick, we have everyone that's in the facility. We bill out their hours for that. So, you want to say something? You want to say something? Any other questions before I go on? Come on, it's only been a half hour. Okay, maintenance tracking. What needs to be done? Procedures, methods, training, what requires maintenance, and then why track it, when, where, what, and how, expense tracking, and accountability. So, what needs to be done? So, I don't know why I said site. Anyways, meet with your staff, talk to them about your equipment demands, understand what they do and why they do it, research the equipment O&M, care for equipment, what should be done, understand how it operates, research usage of frequency, how often does it need it, and then you know how to properly train your staff. So when I started at Salt Lake Community College, I came in from the outside. I didn't go up through the ranks, and so you know how it is when the new boss comes in and he has a bachelor's degree, he's gonna be some young dumb kid that doesn't know anything about what they're doing. And I came in and I just told my guys, you guys have been here 15, 20 years, you know what you're doing, tell me what you're doing, tell me why you're doing it, and then we'll track it. And so I know, like you guys, you're all professions in your own field. You don't want somebody coming in and telling you how to do preventive maintenance on a chiller or a fan or a exhaust fan, because you've been doing it longer than that person is probably asking you how to do it. So I sat down with my employees and I talked to them. I got their buy-in on changes. And when you're, like I said, when you're trying to set up maintenance routine frequency, you need to, with the staff that are doing the work, you need them to agree with the work. So make it their job to research what needs to be done, help them understand why by sending them classes. So I had to understand what they're doing. A lot of the times I found they weren't doing it the best way or the way the manufacturer requires them to do it. So instead of me coming in with some documents from the O&M, I said, hey, is that the right way this needs to be done? Can you research it for me? I'd like to know. And so they went out and did the research on the O&Ms and said, oh, okay, this is actually supposed to be done this way, or the belts, just walk in there and say, yeah, they look nice and straight. No, you use a laser alignment tool to make sure it fits well. You tell them why that's a help for it. You show them some examples of worn out grooves. Oh, I have to change this belt every year. I don't know why. And you go and scratch your head. Why are you changing a belt every year? Why don't you align it properly? Are the grooves worn out? Do you need to put new pulleys or anything on that? And so I started over the last 3 years training them about thinking more than just walking in a room and doing their routine that they've always done. I let them kind of research it, understand it. I give them hints, information time to time. We'll bring outside companies in to do a little training for them. And Too bad we're not allowed to accept food from vendors or anything, so I have to pay for the food while they get trained. So it's another state thing. And so I give them the control, I give them the ownership of what they're doing so that they can buy in and actually follow through with the work instead of me telling them what to do. It's a little sneaky, but it works out well. So, as you know, the O&M, manufacturers know best how to service and repair their own equipment. So you try to convince your staff this is the case and do what they can with what you have. And then, like I said, most manuals are online and easy to follow. So like I said, I point them in the right direction, say, here's O&M for that, crankcase or gearbox for your cooling tower. Read about it. You need to order some parts, something you can rebuild. Here, take a look at this manual. And then they go through and read it and say, oh, that's cool. I didn't know we were supposed to change the oil this much or put this type of oil in there. Well, that's how you clean it up and paint it. They start learning these things and get out of the old dog, been doing it for 20 years attitude and into let's do some research and do it the educated way. Like I said, most of the manuals are online. You just do a Google search of the product and you'll most likely find it, download it. The reason that a lot of them are online is a lot of it for these. When you build a new building, you have to submit specifications for all the products. So most manufacturers put it online so the contractors, salesmen don't have to call and harass them all the time. So it's really easy to get them all. Look at the usage of it. It's equipment by a farm, on a roof, seasonal dailies, a kitchen, a server room. So like I say, you got a cooling tower here, now next to all these leaves. Okay, you can tell right there, you're going to suck in a bunch of leaves, especially in the fall, when you probably be shut down anyway. There's the sun directly on them. It's going to cause a lot of scaling because their chemicals out of date. Near cars, are you going to want to shoot chlorine out onto the cars and ruin all the paint? Like is it in the kitchen? Is there a lot of grease coming through? What media you're transporting? Or is it a clean room where you're not going to service it very often? So at our Jordan campus, it's located just north of a big farmland, and it just happens that all of our intakes for that building are on the south side, right next to the farm. So every time that farmer comes in and tills his fields up, he kicks all that dust in there, and thank goodness I'm there to filter it out of the air so we don't have any air pollution issues. But then it ends up in my filters. And so every spring and fall, when he comes through, I got to go change my filters the following week, so I'll plug. Other applications where they're, like I said, a clean room, it'll go every 12 months before I have to go and change that. So I go through in my system and I mark down, I'll put this piece of equipment in my sprocket system. I'll go and I'll put a frequency to it, say, okay, every 3 months, go repair, go fix, go clean, go empty it, whatever it is. And I just keep track of it through my work order system. But you don't want to spend extra money and extra time to do it too frequently. You don't want to do it too less, not as often, because then it will break down prematurely, get nasty, nobody wants to touch it. So figure out your usage, calculate that on your maintenance, preventive maintenance. Training, spend the time and money to train your staff. They do not learn through osmosis or walking by. They need to spend time working and understanding. So when I started here, every individual staff member had PMs kick out at the beginning of the month. They distributed them to everybody in the workforce, and they just did it. So I'd have one person doing some filters in this room, another person, that same person then going to this next building, doing some filters in the next building, and somebody else coming to the same room, doing a pump in that room. It's like, why did you have this guy do the filters and the pumps in the same room while he's there instead of running around everywhere? So I decided to take all the filters away from them, and I gave it to one guy with some part-timer staff to go to all my campuses and change the filters. He'd been doing it for about 3 years for us part-time. He had decent knowledge about it, but as he started doing it full-time, I started hearing complaints from my other staff, the belts are too tight, they're too loose, filters are backwards, things like that. And here I thought this employee had a good understanding of PMs, but then when I started having to do it, the results started telling me otherwise. And so I had him go around and shadow, or actually I had some of my other guys go with him and train him on the job, how to do the filters, how to check the belts, how to change them, how to tighten them properly. He's wore out a couple bearings through this process, but hey, you finally starting to learn better. But training your staff up front is going to prevent a lot of problems down the road. And that's just not just PMs, that's every aspect of it. Our controls, I used to have Johnson Controls contracted about 70,000 a year to come in and sit with my department once a week and just fix all their control-related programs they're having. And I'd sit in occasionally and listen to them or walk by, and a lot of times they're just sitting chatting about who knows what. So I cut the contract down to about 20,000 a year, and I told my staff, it's now your responsibility to do it, thank you. And then I've sent them to a couple of Johnson Controls classes, learn how to do it. They've kind of picked it up and started doing the majority of it. There's some aspects when they get into the server and NAE devices, they don't understand that level of programming, and so I contract them to come in. I have 100 hours a year that I have them contracted for, and I just use that 100 hours to do those extra programming steps that my internal staff aren't able to do, but my internal staff are able to change out controllers, upload or download programming in the controllers, change out valves, wire them. They can do all that stuff themselves and a little bit of the graphics, but I saved, like I said, about $50,000 by doing that, and my staff become more knowledgeable of what they're doing. And I talked to them about it before I just did it. I didn't walk in and piss them off and do what I wanted to. I sat down and we went over it, and that's when we decided the 100 hours and that. And it's worked out really well. So, why would you want to track it? So accountability, and cover yourself. Complaints from occupants about dirty filters. So like I said, all of our equipment is entered in the system. Every piece of equipment has an associated inspection PM that has to be done on a regular basis. And I can go back in my history and see when it was done, who did it, and what they answered to it. So down at my Miller campus, I had a call from some of the occupants about dirty air, pollutants in the air, and it's messing up their, I can't remember the word. They thought they were getting sick from it or something. I don't know. So and they're like, you need to change your filters more often. They're not changed. You guys don't change them. So I pulled up my history report and said, well, actually, we change them every 4 months. We put in MERV 8 filters, which cut out dust all the way down to, I think it was 3 micron or something. I can't remember what the level was. And we said, do every 4 months. We're coming in. There's actually a PM for it right now that just kicked out a week ago. They'll be here really soon to change them out. They came in, changed it on the regular routine, and told the occupants, all right, the filters are done. Now they're happy. There's no more sickness, no more anything going on. But because of my system, I'm able to say, yes, it was done in October of last year. So it wasn't done a year ago. I was able to track it. So over in our ATC building, I had an employee, before this current employee, I had another employee come in to do the PMs for me. So this employee I was talking about learning how to do it. There was one before him that doesn't work for me anymore. But our ATC building, you go up there and there's some filters for him to go and change. The battery's on the slide. Yes, indeed. I'll get to that second. I'll get back to the story. Accountability says employees can track their jobs, time, materials, document when it's done. The requester can see what is being done and inform when it's complete. And SLCC can see the quantity of work per area of campus for staffing and cost analysis. Supervisors keep informed, employees can schedule their own work, and employees can talk to the requester. So this is a screenshot of my work order log that I can pull up. I can click on each of these items individually and see what the work order is about. It tells me who put it in, where it's located, speech center, what room, who called it in, right there, Marietta, her phone number, and what type of request it is, what shop it's associated to, what type of priority it is. So we have, 1 being life emergency, all the way down to 10, do it when you get to it type thing. And then it says, please adjust my office temperature. Current temperature is 67 degrees. So it gets assigned to a heat plant person. I have a shift phone on my Redwood campus that just floats because I have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage. So we have this shift phone that just gets handed off to each person that comes in, and we call it the heat plant shift phone. So any hot and cold calls that come in automatically go to that shift phone so that I know that somebody's going to be answering it. If I assign it to one of my employees, Millimon or something, he might be sick for 2 days, not get the work order, nobody responds, you get a lot of unhappy occupants or customers. So in this regard, heat plant gets it, so whoever's on shift is carrying the phone, is able to pull it up. They go out, say, okay, this room, 67 degrees, they need to raise it up. Nobody's in the room, okay, you don't tell them you're there. The person comes back, nobody showed up, nothing's been done, they get mad, even though you were there and fixed it, they still don't know anybody showed up. So I put the numbers on here, the person's name, so they can call the person, leave a message, I was here, here's what I did, or leave a note in the office. And then when they go into this work order, they put their time on it, they put their materials, and they make comments on it, here's what I did. And they close it out, and it automatically kicks out an email to the person that called it in with saying, hey, here's your work orders complete, here's the comments, what was done. So you have somebody leaving a note or talking to them, as well as an email following up so they understand what was happening and when it was done. And then that helps me too, because occasionally somebody will go and just close the work order out without doing anything, and that person will take that, send it on to me and say, hey, they closed this work order out, it wasn't done. I know who closed it out, when they closed it out, what they said when they closed it out. I go back and ask the employee, what's going on with this, what happened, and a lot of times it's, oh, I couldn't find the person, it seemed fine in there. I said, did you try to find the person and talk to them, call them? No, I don't know who it was. I'm like, it's right here. So there's a lot of training, constant on-the-job training. Happens forever. And I get the thing, oh, this is new. I'm like, no, it's been here for 12 years. It's not new. Doing it. So it's a lot of fun. And then, like I said, I go and check out. I keep informed, employee keeps informed, they can schedule their own work, they log in, they see all their jobs, everything associated, they don't forget to go do something. It's pretty easy to keep track of it. Here I can see the quantity of work per campus for staffing. So like I said, when that bill passes, I'm going to have to be associating everyone's time to each building. They threatened to take all our money away and only give us back what we improve that we use. I don't think that's going to happen, but at least doing it this way, tracking it, we can say, yes, we use this much hours on this building, this many hours on this building, yes, we need the funding for this, and here's why. So it's mostly working. I think my department's probably, the HVAC department's probably the worst, keeping up with this. Our custodial's really good, all the other departments are really good. Just my heat plant staff's a little behind time. So Miller campus, like I talked about, here's that inspection report that I was telling you about. So I can see the requester, Milwan, he had to go here on the 10-10-14 to that air handler. Here's the work order number. And it says, did you clean the filters? Yes. Did you perform lube on the motor fan? Yes. Is the economizer operational? Yes. Did you replace the belt? No. Are the crew coils clean? Yes. Are there gauges and temperature probes operational? Yes. Did you clean the unit inside and out? Yes. Are all associated pumps operational and lube? Yes. Is any additional work that can be done in the areas? Please comment below. No, then no comment. And then they close it out. So my employee can go in here, and the inspection guy will go on. He can go in here and they'll clean the filters. Yes, yes. If he finds a coil that's dirty, he'll say no here. It automatically generates a work order from my service crew to go out, associate that piece of equipment to clean those coils, so he doesn't have to go back in when he's done and fill out all these different work orders for any work that's associated to it. He just automatically checks no, and then it makes it for him. And go in and temperature gauges, pumps, any of that stuff, he says no on, it associates the new work order to whatever he selects. Down here, he says yes. So if he walks in the mechanical room, notices a light bulb burned out, he'll say yes. He'll write in the comment, light bulb burned out above pump 5 or whatever, wherever it is. And that generates another work order and then gets assigned to, based off what he writes, to that department, so they can go in there. So I'm using Millabon and my part-timers as my eyes and ears to go out there, because they're in every single room, every single building, looking at their equipment, cleaning their equipment, and pointing out any problems that they find. So I know our student center, they'll go up on the roof and they'll find exhaust fans that are dead. They'll replace belts, but if there's no power, it's not running, he'll say, no, it's not operational. My other guys go behind and fix it. So he doesn't have to have the technical expertise to repair it, and hence the reason I have part-timers working for him, because they just go in, do belts, filters, and leave, and clean. And I don't want to pay somebody high, state, low salary to do this. I'll pay somebody a lower salary. And it works out really well. We have inspection reports for every type of equipment. So air handlers are different from fan coils, which is different from exhaust fans. They all have their associated questions. When I first started, all this stuff was on paper. The guys would take paper with them and they'd fill it out on the sheets, and if they noticed something, they'd have to go back out and fill out another piece of paper and write it down and turn it in. That was 3 years ago, even though we've had this for 10 years, they didn't utilize it. So I brought them at least up to this level of now doing this. And like I said, I could pull any of these up from the last 2 years when I started doing it and see the frequency of what they found. So ATC building. So I had this previous employee filling out PMs stating the work was done. I got a call about a concern in the building with smoke buildup and other issues, and I get looking at the work order, and I pull up there and looking at multiple there's 13 exhaust fans on that building, and you can see the broken belt here, all the broken cogs right in here, and yet he closed out the work order with saying signed and done. And when I went to terminate him, he complained that, oh, I didn't look at that unit, oh, I didn't look at that specific unit. Well, I'm able to pull up all 13 exhaust fans with all of their dates and his name signing it out, that he was the employee performing the duties, yet, as you can see, it wasn't done. So it gives you some accountability there. This one turned out to be a mess, but glad it's over with. Other parts of it is warranties. We have the FCM requirements, longevity and equipment replacement estimating. So some manufacturers require tracking for maintenance and warranty coverages. So like I have a Mura boiler that has pretty much a lifetime warranty if I maintain my chemical reading and tracking and all that stuff. And so if I don't do my maintenance like I'm supposed to, they won't take care of my warranty. They'll say, oh no, you missed the oil reading here, we're not gonna cover that part for you. Now I track it, I can go back and say, here was all of our readings, here's how often it's done, here's who did it, here's when it was done. I have all my documentation, I don't have to worry about it. It's not going to get flooded, it's not going to be ruined because it's all electronically stored on multiple sites. Sprocket backs it up for us all the time. I don't have to worry about it getting stolen or lost in the department next time they clean the roof. Quincy air compressor, same thing, we have a 5-year warranty. You have to keep oil readings on it per hour and all that. So this helps keep track of that. DFCM requires us to track them. All of our buildings and equipment in essence is owned by DFCM, it's Department of Facilities and Construction Management, and they come through once a year and audit all of my buildings, and they look at my maintenance requests, PMs, they walk through and look at the equipment, make sure it's taken care of, and then they rate us with a scale of 0 to 100 or 94, I think is the max. And then our funding, if we drop below certain tiers of that, our funding gets cut, or we get put on probation, and we get a lot of negative things happening if we drop too low. But most of the time, we're in the low 90s, 91 to 93s, typically where all of our buildings sit at. And they look at fire suppression, fire electrical panels. We have to do infrared scans on all of our electrical panels. And we attach photos to those and put them in our sprocket for the work order, so we can go back and look at all the IR images for the last few whatever, and see when it's starting to get worse and that. So. Maintenance improves and extends equipment life, efficiency in operations. Pretty sure all of you understand how that works, and the benefits of doing your maintenance. And then tracking system maintenance helps project need for replacement, such as needing service too often age. Like I said earlier, if I have a piece of equipment that's constantly having to be worked on, I can go in history and say, hey, every month I have to come back to this urinal, it keeps not flushing properly. I'm just going to switch it out. I'm spending too much time, too much cost on maintaining a piece of junk. And then I can turn to my administration and say, here's how much I'm spending per year to maintain an item that costs this much. If you let me have this funding for that, here's my payback, or return on investment, in other words, on replacing it. And it helps sell really well, especially when you have the data to back it up. Any questions? I think I'm right on time. Nothing? You guys are nice. Well, thank you.